So after this one, we're going to start public function filter returns correct number of values. That's the first test that is going to check whether we get the correct number of values when we basically interact with this filter. So we start with the filter equals new filter. And let's import this class as well. By the way, when I'm importing, if you're using any other ID, obviously make sure that you just use this use statement and fully qualifying a class name with the namespace right at the top before the class declaration. Okay, so filter, and for this filter we need to start. Let's just have a look at the filter class again. What it takes array of queries and then concatenate as a second and third argument, which might be null, so we can ignore this if we want to use the default concat end for both. Otherwise we can obviously override them. Okay, so let's go back to equals test filter. We start with the array of our queries, so new equals, and I want to pass the field books ID, and then another new equals, and this time I'm going to put a books category. So these are our queries. Now next one, for the first one, for the second argument, the concatenator, I want to use the concat end, but I'm just going to strictly specify that I want to use this one. So concat end, we don't need brackets, import class again, and then for the third argument, new concat or this time. And again, we don't need brackets because we don't have any constructors there to play with. If I just click on this one, construct concat, you can see we don't. This is just the interface, obviously, and concat or doesn't contain doesn't have any constructor to pass any arguments to. Okay, so now that we have our filter ready, let's do assertion. This concat assert count, and we expect 2 items when we call filter, and then we, let's say, put some keywords, twilight for instance, and then values method. When we call these values, we should get 2 values because we are passing 2 different filters here. Let's just put some message, incorrect number of values, and let's save it and let's run this test. And there we go, we've got 5 tests, 9 assertions. Now let's go through this once more so we know exactly what is happening here. So first of all, we instantiate in this filter class. Let's go to the filter class, which takes the 3 arguments, and we are passing all 3 through. So let's just have a look at the filter. It adds these queries, associate these queries with the queries property. Then what we're doing, we are asserting that the count of the values is going to be 2 when we run filter method on this filter. Let's just find the filter method here. There we go. The filter method first clears statements and values, then runs through all of the queries using the for each statement. Add statement simply will add statement to the statements array, and add value will add value to the values, unless we have replaced subquery on the given query. And if we go back, we only pass the first argument to our query class, our equals class, which is also an instance of the query because it extends this query class. We don't pass a second and third argument, indicating that we want to override that we have any subquery and we want to replace the subquery. So in this case, obviously, this replacement subquery will fail. And we're gonna go to this line where this value is going to be added to the values, and because we have two queries passed through, obviously we run this for each statement twice. There are 2 iterations. That's why these values, we should have 2 values within the values, and then when we call this values method, which simply returns this array of values, and when we run count on it, obviously this assertion count simply runs count function on it, it should return 2. That's why if we go back and run the test again, we're gonna get 9 assertions. Obviously this one also passing. So that's great. So we've got we now know that obviously when we add 2 queries, once we run the filter method and then get the values, when we count these values, the array should contain 2 values, which is great. That's what we should do. Okay, next function will check if we have actually correct values returned from these values method. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy first part of it when we actually instantiating this filter. So public function filter returns correct values. And now let's make it a test as well. We instantiate this filter exactly the same way as before. And what we are going to do now is we're going to run this assert equals. And what we expect to get is the array containing number 5 and 5. It's not full stop, it's comma. When we run filter, calling the filter method on it with value 5 and then values. Because we have two filters here, two queries here, even though we pass just one value, this value will be added twice to the values, and both of these statements obviously will be added to the statements array. And if it doesn't return this, then what we are going to say is incorrect filtered values. Let's save it. Let's run our test again. This time we have 6 tests and 10 assertions, all of which are passing. So that would indicate that obviously this filter values returns correct values. The next test will test for the correct statement. So public function filter produces correct statement with multiple queries and with alter and inner or. It's quite verbose if you ask me, but well, let me just close the file browser on the left. So filter produces correct statement with multiple queries, the same way as we had here, and with alter and, which is the way we've got it here. This is the alter and then inner or. A concatenator. Okay, so we're going to start exactly the same as exactly same way we did before. I'm going to copy this filter instantiation, and the next thing I'm going to do is run this filter method on the filter, and I'm just going to pass value 5 through as an argument. So now we should have statements and values properties filled in with the correct values as well. Now we're going to run this assert equals, and we go for the string, which will be books ID equals question mark, or books category equals question mark. And now let me explain in just a moment what's happening here again. Filter, we run in the statement this time with true as the argument. Otherwise, if it fails, then we're going to say incorrect statement without alter and with inner or. Actually, with alter, not without alter. Okay, with alter and with inner or. Inner or because we are joining these two queries together, and this is the inner or. And if we are using filter with another filter, then the alter filter should be or between them. Okay, so let's now quickly have a look at what's happening here. We passing 2 queries, just passing a single argument to them, which is the field name, which is going to be concatenated table name with the field name. So books ID represents this argument, field name basically, and then we have books category for the second one, which is equals because we're using the equal query here, equal question mark, and because for the inner statement we are using or, that's why we have or in between joining this inner queries. Okay, let's run the statement. Did I add tag? I didn't add tag here, so let's add test tag, save it, and run the test again. There we go, 7 tests, 11 assertions, all of which are passing. So that's great. Next thing we're going to check is this assert equals. Actually, you know, let's just copy what we have here. It's going to be much quicker because it's pretty much the same thing. And we're going to just change here. We're going to add and because we're going to now remove this true argument, and now just going back to the statement, this argument basically tells us whether this is the first item. And if it's false, then it will basically use this concat method, which by default, if I just open one of these concat classes, if we just go back up, database concat, say end, concat method uses the keyword before, concat first does not. And obviously because here we will have false this time, it will run this concat method, which means that if it's a concat end, it will prepend the statement with the end keyword and then a space. So this time we are removing this true, so it's going to be false by default. Perhaps we should update these messages here as well. Incorrect statement with auto end, and let's just end in a or with first statement without first statement for the second one. Okay, let's now save it, run a test, and there we go. This time 12 assertions, all of which are passing. So now our statement, we know that our statement method works correctly with the argument set to true as well as the argument being set to false, which is the default value of the only argument that the statement method takes. Okay, so the next test, public function, and we are going to say filter produces correct statement with multiple queries and with alter and wrap this time and inner or. And obviously you can't see what I've been typing here because it's so long. Let's just close the file browser again. So filter produces correct statement with multiple queries and with alter and with alter and wrap and inner or. Alter and wrap, let's go back to the concatenators here. We've got concat or wrap, so alter or wrap, or we are going to be using in this case alter and wrap. Okay, let's close this file browser and let's copy again this filter instantiation here. Let's go back to our new test. Let's actually add the test stack here as well. So we have this filter, but this time rather than concat and, we're going to have concat and wrap. And let's import this class as well. Again, we don't need brackets for this one, and we're using concat or for the inner. And now we're going to start filter methods, and we're going to pass the string this time, twilight, for instance. And then we're going to go for the first assertion, this assert equals, and we should get in between the brackets, we should get this time books ID equals question mark, or books category equals question mark. Pretty much the same thing that we did when we got before. The only difference obviously is, as you can see here, we got exactly the same thing, but this time we should have it wrapped within a set of brackets. As you may remember, if you click on this and wrap, here we've got end, and then we use brackets when this is not the first item within a statement. If it's the first item, we only wrap the statement within the bracket. So either way, we're gonna get the brackets. Okay, so this, we should get this when we run filter and then statement true, indicating that this is the first item, obviously, when we pass through Boolean as argument, and then incorrect statement with author and wrap this time, author and wrap with inner or. How did I put it here? And inner or. And I think that's with the first statement, with first statement. Okay, so with first statement. Okay, so let's test it. Back to our terminal. Let's run a test, and there we go. 8 tests, 13 assertions, which would indicate that this test passes as well. Now, if I just duplicate this assertion. This time I'm expecting to have keyword and before these brackets and then the statement, because we're using this concat and wrap. So we use and then wrapping within the bracket our statement, when we obviously indicate that this is not the first item, not the first statement within the where clause. So we need to remove this true. And then the message would say incorrect statement with alter and wrap and inner or with without first statement. Is that correct? Yeah, without first statement. I think that makes sense, more or less. Okay, let's run the test again, and there we go. 8 tests, 14 assertions. We have 2 more tests to write. Let's just quickly start with the first one. Public function filter produces correct statement with multiple queries and with alter or this time and inner and. So we're going to swap the arguments. Let's just add test tag above the methods, and let's just copy what we have here. Let's just copy together with this. Actually, let's copy the entire content of this last statement, and we're going to modify. It's going to be a little bit quicker. Okay, so we have the same set of the items within the first argument, this array, and then rather than concat and wrap, we are going to use concat or, and then we are going to, for the second argument, for the inner join, for the inner concatenator, we're going to use a concat and. Okay, same, we call the filter with the same argument. It doesn't really matter that much here because we know checking for the values. And then we have assert equals. This time we're not going to have any brackets surrounding our statement, but rather than or for the inner, we are now using concatenator and. So it's going to be and. That's what we should receive when we call statement with true, indicating that this is the first item in the where clause. Okay, so incorrect statement with alter or this time with alter or and inner and with first statement, and then we have the same thing with alter or and inner and without first statement. Now and here is, sorry, it's not going to be and, it's going to be or, but because for the alter statement we're using the or concatenator and there won't be any brackets here. And then obviously in between for the inner statement, which is this part, we will have and keyword. Okay, so that should work, presumably. Let's just go back to our terminal, run the test, and there we go. 9 tests, 16 assertions, all of which are passing. Okay, so this was another test, and now the last test we're going to wrap. I'm going to duplicate everything that we just did. Let's rename this method to say filter produces correct statement with multiple queries and with alter or wrap this time and inner and. So alter or wrap. There we go. So this other concatenator. So concat or wrap, and make sure that obviously again I'm going to scroll up, you import all of these classes here. Concatenators are separate. I'm just going to put them separately, and then all these filter query and subqueries as a separate block as well. Let's just remove this line and let's go back to the bottom, and obviously we need to modify this last test. So this time we have or wrap, and we have and for the second argument, for the third argument to this constructor. Then what we should receive, we should receive this one wrapped here. We will also have and in between, but because this alter concatenator is wrapping the inner statement, that's why we have these brackets surrounding the statement. Okay, so incorrect statement with alter or wrap and inner and with first statement, and then alter or wrap and inner without first statement. Then for this one, obviously we should also get this inner statement wrapped, preceding obviously the whole thing with the or keyword when we are indicating that this is not the first statement within the where clause. Okay, let's save it, run the test, and there we go. 10 tests, 18 assertions, all of which are passing. Let's remove these redundant lines here, and that's our equals test completed.